Hi guys, it's Carisa, and today I'm doing my week 13 update. And week 13 was kind of a big one for me as far as a lot of things were concerned. I actually had to print out a list because I had been keeping notes. So if you haven't noticed already, this video is going to be lengthy. So grab a snack or fold some laundry or something because it's probably going to be boring. And I get a little out of breath these days, so I'm going to have to go a little more slowly. There were a couple of things that I remembered that have been going on for several weeks now, but they never really stood out enough to me in my mind to make a note of them when I was going to make a video. But I just remembered yesterday that eye goop has been an issue. Ugh, hate even talking about it. But in the corners of my eyes, you know, everyone tends to get a little bit of like a milky colored, you know, sort of clear discharge in your eye. At least I think most people do, and they know about it. And if you wear a lot of eyeliner or if you tightline, you might even get makeup colored goo in the corner of your eye. Well, I normally am very aware of that, and I try to really look out for it, especially because I wear contact lenses and my eyes can tend to be irritated. But I've noticed lately it's almost aggressive. There's just so much of it all the time. Not in excess, but it's definitely different in color. It's more opaque. It's like white, and it's constant. It's almost constant, and it's embarrassing because I usually notice it after I've just talked to someone or I've seen someone, and then I look in the mirror and I realize I have this disgusting white goo in my eye, in the corners of my eye. Another thing, and this is purely a cosmetic detail, but my nails have been kind of rubbish lately. I just shortened them yesterday because I was starting to feel like it was getting time for a good clean cut on all of them. But I do prefer to keep my nails a little bit on the long side. But my polish doesn't seem to want to stay on as well. It seems to peel off almost. Like the layers of my nail just peel away. And my nails almost seem kind of oily. So if I remove that layer that starts peeling off or just buff it off, it just happens again, like a couple of days later, which definitely affects the actual tip of my nails for strength because there's less and less nail on the end. So I do find myself having to repaint them more frequently, which is fine, and I should probably try to keep them on the shorter side if I can help it, just to prevent aggravation from having to do it as frequently. But it is strange because it's not really, my nail beds have been a little bit peely in the past, but not to this degree. Another thing that's been going on for a few weeks now, but that I just remembered, is that my sense of smell is heightened, but it's just for the worse. And I'm not complaining about any of these things. It's just funny to me to bring them up, but I've noticed everything smells bad to me. If Mike and I are driving around and he rolls the window down, everything that we drive by smells bad to me. I feel like if we go to a restaurant, I can only smell the foods that I wouldn't want to eat sort of in the air. It's just funny because I feel like everything just kind of always smells bad. And probably the biggest offense to me, the thing that has grossed me out the most, is anything that comes out of the fridge. Now, I drink a lot of water. That's mostly all I drink is water. But I don't refrigerate it. I actually prefer it room temperature, and that's something that I started early on in fertility treatments. So for years now, I've been drinking room temperature beverages. But if I have something in the fridge and I decide to drink it, mostly the Atkins meal replacement shakes, I can't drink it straight out of the container because the whole container to me, as I lift it to my nose, smells like the inside of the fridge. And when I first noticed that a few weeks ago, I cleaned the entire inside of the fridge out, and it didn't help. And then a few weeks later, Mike cleaned the entire inside of the fridge, not even because I asked him to or because I had said anything, but he just happened to decide he wanted to go through and clean it all out. And it still happens. Well, I don't even let myself experience that anymore. I like to have one of those Atkins shakes for breakfast, just because I do end up eating an actual breakfast about an hour or so later. But I find when I first wake up in the morning, I feel really hungry and kind of my stomach just feels unsettled. So I like to have something substantial with like vitamins and protein in liquid form to get it right in. And then I usually have a liter of water immediately before or after that. But I even notice I pour it into a glass now and drink it with a straw, but I even notice when I'm first pouring it into the glass, there's this like gross refrigerator smell to it, and there's nothing I can do about that. I just have to pour it in the glass and kind of let it sit for a second and hope that it airs out, and then I'm okay. So now on to week 13 specifically. Probably the most surprising thing is that I've been noticing my belly, which I really didn't think would happen for a very long time. But it's because it's not where I was expecting it to be. Of course. I am so large in my stomach, and I do have a paniculus, or like an apron belly, because after some weight loss, my stomach has started to hang. And I had just been really coming to terms with the fact over the last year or so that I wanted to really work hard enough to lose enough weight to need skin removal surgery, because I'll never be happy or comfortable with that area of my body until that takes place. So because my stomach hangs so low and it's so large, I have a tendency and just a habit to stand up really tall and to always hold my stomach in. And while I was on my weight loss journey, I was even wearing belly bands and compression garments the way people do typically after a skin removal surgery, to hopefully reduce a lot of the discomfort from the skin. Just from it hanging and just kind of being all over the place and touching itself, things like that. So I expected, for a couple of reasons, that I would feel the mass and weight of my belly in the lower portion, because that's where it already is. That's where it already is the biggest. And that's where my largest measurement is on my whole body, is right there. And when I'm on the Doppler, which I don't know if I think I have discussed that in a previous video, but I do use the Doppler. But if I ever get one of those familiar, just very quick but panicked feelings of worry, I can just go in my room and find the heartbeat, and I can find it in like 5 to 10 seconds, because she's always in the same spot. I feel like one of the coolest things to experience is finding the heartbeat and just leaving the probe there and hearing it very faint, but then it sort of gets louder and louder, like she's moving around and I can hear her getting closer to the probe. It's just such an incredible thing, and I really do enjoy that. It's one of the most immediate, it is the most immediate thing I can do to really make myself feel better. Not that that even really happens much anymore, because she's way down there. I didn't expect my belly to be happening up here, but it is. So I have been taking photos of myself, and I think I started at week 9, because I really didn't see the point in taking any belly shots, honestly, because I already have a belly. So I just thought, I don't really care about that. But eventually at week 9, when I was starting to feel more comfortable with the pregnancy being real, I did take a photo, and I've taken a few since then. I haven't been consistent in taking them weekly. Well, I took one yesterday for my week 14 photo, and I did compare it side by side to week 9, and I can definitely see a difference in the overall shape of my belly. It's still big, but it's just different. I also drew a really unflattering or flattering diagram, depending on how you see it. But here is sort of what I was dealing with before, and no, I'm not this thin. I drew that back line way too close to the front line. But here's the bust line in the before and the after. And I had a pretty considerable dip by my rib cage. That was, you know, one of the more flattering aspects of my weight loss, was that I had lost a significant amount here, but I still had this going on. There's a belly button. So now that is gone, that flattering part of my body, or a slightly more flattering part. And I'm getting a lot more of this shape here. And it feels hard. It actually feels like if I press on it, it feels like it's pressing back, like it's angry. But there is no baby up here under my breast. That's a whole other creation going on. I don't know what that is. It does kind of hurt to hold my stomach in, so I have to sort of remind myself to push it out. and sort of let it hang. And that's something I haven't done in 20 years of being aware of the fact that my stomach was a problem area on my body. So I'm trying to retrain myself to not hold my stomach in, because I can tell that does make it feel achy. But then when I let it out and I'm walking around, I start to notice the sciatic problems on both sides of my butt, and my butt cheeks just in general are like, no. That's something that I'm dealing with and trying to sort of figure out. I do have the belly bands that I was using before, but I don't think that that would really help me in this circumstance. So, but I will consider that at a later point. In terms of more gynecological issues, I have noticed a change there. I've had this sort of, I guess the best thing I could call it is phantom wetness, where I feel very wet, like almost like a period flow. And then if I go to the bathroom, or if I just go to wipe and check, because it feels really, I'm trying to avoid using the M word that most people don't care for, but you know what I'm saying. It's almost like there's nothing there. So I have no idea what that's all about. That actually has kind of stopped, and I'm not a fan of it. So I hope that that doesn't continue, but I also don't know if that's normal, but it may be related to the fact that I've also had some discharge, and it is very much like egg white cervical mucus, but it's, you know, on steroids. It's large sort of blobs of clear, sticky, stretchy, mucusy stuff. Sorry, this is a pregnancy vlog, so. And it's not every day, it's every couple of days. Sometimes it's way more than others. Sometimes it's a lot, and then sometimes it's just a little bit. Just on the tissue when I use the bathroom. And I guess it's normal, so I'm not gonna worry about it. I have been noticing that a couple of times I haven't had problems with insomnia or falling asleep or staying asleep. I'm very lucky in that regard, but I have noticed here and there I'll have a bad night's sleep where, say I'll wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom or something, and when I go back to lay down, or even if I just wake up and sort of try to adjust myself and get, you know, back to sleep, I can't. And I feel very aware of everything. Like I can feel all the hair on my head, and I can feel my head on the pillow. I don't even know how to describe it better than that. Everything just, like I can just feel too many things. My skin and my scalp and everything just feels ultra sensitive, and I can't get comfortable. Everything feels rough and prickly and just angry, I guess. And that might sound like a really weird thing to say. I hope one of you, at least one of you, knows what I'm talking about. And I'm still tired. I still want to go to sleep, but just everything feels so wrong. So sometimes I have to get out of bed and like watch a YouTube video or something, and get away from the bed and then come back in and lay down. And then I'm usually fine. But if I keep laying, oh, sorry, normal, you gotta go. But if I keep laying there and just trying to force myself to sleep, it does not happen. I'm just too uncomfortable. I also am getting headaches from the sun. It's definitely the beginning of summer now. It's been very warm. Some days it's been high 80s, low 90s, and I know that's nothing to some people depending on where they live. I'm sorry, she just has to stand here. But if I am inside all day working and we have the air conditioning on, and I go outside, say to check the mail or to run an errand, and I walk outside into the sun, it's too much. It just feels like too much for me, and I get a headache from it, and I get that swelling in the back of my head, really feels prominent. I can't wear my sunglasses or my vision glasses at all. One day I did it just to give my eyes a rest, and I was miserable because my head hurt so bad from the glasses, which is such a strange pregnancy symptom that my head is swollen. But that's the thing. Now let's talk about food and eating. I have a pattern, and it's not a consistent one, but I have a pattern of two things that happen. One, where I'm a complete bottomless pit, and it's not even that I'm necessarily hungry. I could be eating a meal and still thinking about what I'm going to eat again. I feel incredibly preoccupied by food, very driven by food, and excited by the thought of having it. And then I'll have another day, which a lot of times happens the very next day, where I don't want to eat at all. Nothing sounds good. but I'm starving all day. I just feel ravenous all day. And I do eat, of course, because I know I should, but it's very small amounts, and that's probably part of the reason why I get hungry again so quickly, because I'll have, you know, like a handful of mixed nuts, just a very small amount, and some water, and then 20 minutes later my stomach's like, not enough, so I have to eat again, and I don't want to. So sometimes I force myself to have something more substantial or more filling. I do make smoothies every day so that I can get my spinach and avocado in, because I want to make sure I eat that every single day. So I do make smoothies, but I'm starting to get sick of them, and some days I even struggle just to have beverages because I just don't want it. But I think first and foremost of my little girl, and I want to make sure that I'm taking care of her. And so I struggle with that a little bit. It's weird because I've always had strange food issues, and I've already, like I've said before, my cravings, if I've had any, and my aversions, if I've had any, are basically my previous feelings about food, but amplified. And that's sort of been the same thing with this. I used to have days like that before pregnancy where I just want to eat all day, and then other days where I didn't want a thing. But back then I could kind of just not really eat and not mind it. Now I don't do that. I am closer to low carb than not, but I'm also not. I'm not keto. The thought of cheese is just not interesting to me unless it's on a pizza. Honestly, that's the only time I ever really want cheese. I would never want to just eat like a string cheese, and I used to do that all the time before. Eggs are a no-go. Meat is a no-go unless it's tacos. I have had a ferocious craving for tacos. I want them every day. It's the only thing I ever want to eat. I would eat them for every meal if I could. I'm embarrassed by how many times I've indulged, but I think it also helps me in other aspects, because if I decide I'm going to plan on having tacos, say for lunch or dinner, then I make myself. I won't let myself do that unless I've had a salad or my spinach smoothie or whatever first, and at least 3 of my 4 to 5 liters of water first. Because I can't promise that I'll do it after, because once I eat the tacos, usually I'm full and I don't want that stuff. So it is a little bit embarrassing, but it's just all I can ever think about. And I have found, in my opinion, that it is far better to give into a craving and even just have a small amount of it than to try and substitute it with other things that are similar. So for example, I've been really into salty things. I might have mentioned that in my last video, I'm not sure. Salt is really a driving factor in things that I decide to eat. So I've been eating a lot of olives and soup, just chicken soup broth. I've been really into salt. Well, it's summertime and I don't want to get really swollen and bloated from that, and I have to also be careful of my blood pressure, because salt is beneficial when you're low carb, but when you're not, you don't want to have it in excess. And I've been craving just plain potato chips. I just want a bag of plain, like Lay's, the yellow bag of potato chips. And I feel so guilty about eating that. So I have found that it's better when you're at the store to get one of those little tiny, like lunch size bags that are, I don't know, $1, and actually have the thing that you want, than just try and convince yourself not to. You know, I would keep having just mixed nuts and find other salty things. Okay, this is salty and crunchy. This is, you know, this is not something that you should feel guilty about. When honestly, just having like 3 or 4 of those chips in that little bag is all that it took to make me feel like, oh, okay, that's what I wanted. I don't know if you saw it on my Instagram, but I posted some cherries that I bought at the grocery store. The cherries are in season and they look beautiful sitting there at the grocery store in these big, gorgeous bags. But I know that's a lot of sugar, and I do want fresh fruit, and I do want to have fresh produce on a regular basis, but in moderation, and certainly more vegetables than fruit. So I put 10 cherries in a bag and separated that and weighed that and bought those and had those as a treat, because I would have eaten them all day if they were in the house. But those 10 precious cherries were so delicious, and maybe I'll get some more next week at the store, but just in very small amounts. Okay, so some non-physical things to talk about that are very exciting. Probably the most exciting is the fact that Mike and I decided on a name, which we will probably keep secret until she's here. But I don't know either, because part of me wants to just share it because it feels so good to have a name that we both really love and not feel like we just settled on one because there were names that I loved that he hated and that he didn't really have any suggestions, but I would throw them at him frequently, and we had a long list, and I had it saved in my notes section in my phone, and I just delete the ones he said he didn't like. And then there were ones we loved, but we got to thinking about it and they didn't sound as good with the middle name or with the last name, or I would think of childish nicknames that kids in school would use to be mean. So we were able to narrow it down, and we've kind of already narrowed it down for a few weeks, but I officially stopped looking for new ones because I just didn't like anything as well, and he agreed with me. So it's very exciting. I also put a deposit on newborn photos, and I'm in talks to do birth photos as well. That scares me a little because it feels like it could feel a little bit invasive at the time, but I feel like I'll appreciate it later. Although she does claim that she's very, very quiet and in the background and doesn't get involved, and she usually stands behind the hospital bed or behind my head anyway. And it's very tasteful. There's no like unnecessary nudity. It's just very beautiful. And I've seen a lot of her work in the past, and I'm just really looking forward to working with her and having those photos to cherish forever. We figured out which room we're going to use for the nursery, and we have started the process of cleaning out the garage, the basement, my office, and the rest of the house to have a yard sale so that we can declutter. Oh, I hate having yard sales. I hate it. People are such jerks. But anyway, it's been a few years. We have a lot of crap. It's way more than we could actually donate. We should just have a yard sale. So we are preparing for that in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to move some of the things from the other room into my office and start preparing the nursery. I bought a few things for it already. I have a feeling I'm gonna just love being in that room. I'm just gonna go sit in there sometimes. I'm just so excited. It just makes me feel, it's so exciting. Whew. Speaking of emotions, I consider this a huge win. I had a bad day one day, and Mike had a bad day. Well, his wasn't as bad, but I had a bad day. And I said, I think I'm not tired enough to go to bed yet, and I don't want to go to bed feeling grumpy. So I'm gonna go walk around the baby store. And he was like, can I go with you? So we went to Bye Bye Baby, and we walked around and looked at things, and I'm so proud of myself. I didn't cry at all while I was there. We got so much joy out of just looking at things and getting ideas. And then a couple of days later, we went to Babies R Us and did the same thing and walked the store. We actually made a couple of purchases, which you've probably already seen. It was just, they were such happy times, and I didn't cry at all. I just enjoyed it, and not that it would have been sad tears, but it was good. And lastly, I am going to film another video on this probably today, which you will have already seen, but I am officially in maternity clothes, sort of, mostly just maternity bottoms, and I have been having trouble with that because I feel like my belly is huge, but it's not shaped like a baby belly yet, so I don't want skin tight maternity clothes on my body with like the ruching on the sides and all of that. Eventually I will hopefully really love that, but right now I am in no mood to be dressing like that. And that's all maternity stores have, it seems. And that rounds out the 13th week of pregnancy. Thank you for sitting through all of that. And thank you for watching, and I will talk to you soon.